Welcome to the deep dive. We've got some really fascinating source material lined up today. It's all focused on recent video footage, things showing some genuinely unusual aerial phenomena,
Mm,
and beyond, actually.
that's right. The sources we're looking at, they pull together reports, video clips from quite a few different places. We're
Mhm.
talking Australia, South Carolina, and yeah, even footage that seems to be from space.
And our mission here, really, is to unpack the details, the characteristics reported in these sources. We want to help you get a clearer picture of what was apparently captured, and maybe see if there are common threads described across these sightings.
Exactly. Help make sense of what's being reported.
Okay, so let's get into it. The source material starts by setting the scene a bit.
Hmm.
It mentions recent activity noted over Australia and England.
Right. And they mention reports of objects actually being tracked on radar, even fighter jets scrambled sometimes. And apparently some of these objects were reported coming out of the ocean.
Which is interesting because the source uses this to kind of suggest, well, maybe a pattern. Not just random lights, but activity that's getting picked up by official systems, often near coasts.
Yeah, it sets a stage of, let's say, ongoing tracked phenomena before diving into the specific videos we're going to talk about.
Okay, so that brings us to the first specific clip the sources highlight. So it takes us to Australia,
Mhm.
over Brisbane, Queensland, caught on the Point Tauern weather cam.
Mm-hmm. And the footage, it reportedly shows this glowing object. Starts off, relatively small, just a light. But then as it gets closer to the camera, the source describes something pretty dramatic happening.
Yeah.
A sudden, really significant increase in brightness. The source claims it got at least 10 times brighter, almost instantly.
10 times brighter. Okay, and here's where, according to the source, it gets really interesting. Right after that intense brightening.
It doesn't just fly off normally.
No, it apparently just changes speed and direction, like instantly,
Yeah.
jets off upwards super fast. And the source notes, kind of specifically, that you only see a trail after it jets off.
Right, not during the approach or the brightening phase itself, just as it's leaving at that incredible speed.
So this sequence, the sudden bright flash, then the immediate impossible seeming acceleration, the source points to this as like a recurring thing.
Exactly. They actually give it a name. They call this sudden flash or the big jump in brightness a plasma discharge.
A plasma discharge.
Huh?
So the source is suggesting this flash is tied directly to that rapid departure.
Precisely. According to the source, this plasma discharge effect is something they see as a common denominator across quite a few different clips they've looked at.
And they have a theory about what it means.
Well, they speculate, based on what they're seeing, that it might be the signature of the object entering what they call hyperspeed, or maybe even warp speed.
Hyperspeed. Warp speed.
Right.
Okay. Enabling it to just vanish or move too fast to track visually.
That seems to be the idea presented. The flash is maybe the energy signature of that massive sudden acceleration or transition.
All right, so that's the Australian event. Intense brightening, plasma discharge, incredible speed. Moving on, the next source report adds, well, another layer. This one's closer to home, over Columbia, South Carolina. Our driver saw this one.
Yeah, and initially the driver thought maybe an odd cloud or possibly a blimp, but then it reportedly just sort of materialized, became this clear metallic gray saucer shape.
A classic saucer. And the description gets pretty specific. It was apparently following the car, had no wings, no obvious propulsion, and just seemed to be, well, defying gravity.
Mhm.
But the source points out something specific in the footage itself, a subtle movement.
Yes, they focus on this slight wobble or oscillation. They actually call it an anti-gravity wobble.
Anti-gravity wobble, is that something
Yeah.
common?
Well, the source claims it is. They say this kind of wobble is often reported in footage of saucer-type objects. And they even mention claims reportedly made by figures they call government insiders and
Yeah.
also Bob Lazar.
Ah, Lazar. Known for his claims about Area 51 and S4, working on alleged alien tech.
Right. So the source connects this wobble observed in the footage to those kinds of discussions about perhaps how these craft operate, maybe their propulsion system.
So the source is presenting this wobble as maybe a visual artifact of some kind of anti-gravity tech at work.
That's the implication, yeah. Connecting the visual to the alleged technology. And just like the Australian object, this one also had a pretty dramatic exit.
It disappeared.
Almost instantly, according to the source. Right when the recording started, it seems. Poof.
But not just gone. The source describes something else, right? Like a cloaking effect.
Exactly. It wasn't just blink and it's gone. They described the object itself becoming invisible, but you could still see, apparently, a faint outline. and a sort of distortion against the blue sky background.
Oh, interesting. Like heat haze, but outlining something invisible.
Kind of. The source actually makes a comparison to the invisibility shield effect in the Predator movie, where you see the shimmering outline.
Okay, I get the picture. So transparent, but still subtly detectable by this distortion.
Right. Rendering itself invisible, but leaving that trace.
Yeah.
And then mirroring the Australia report again, just as the object finally does completely dematerialize and vanish.
Let me guess. A flash.
You got it. A bright blue flash, according to the source. And again, they label this a plasma discharge.
So that term again?
They're really emphasizing it as this common signature, happening when these craft either disappear entirely or, as they suggest, jump to that warp speed, moving too fast to be seen.
Okay, wow. So Australia, South Carolina,
Yeah.
both featuring this plasma discharge idea linked to vanishing or extreme speed. Now, another source takes this, well, literally higher, into space.
Yeah, this next case involves a triangular-shaped object. It was apparently captured by someone reviewing webcam footage, but it seems to be way up, maybe in orbit or space, sort of blending in with the stars.
And this was over Brazil, viewed via webcam.
The footage source is cited as allskycams.com, over Brazil, yes. And the person who spotted it is named in the source as Mr. Scott Wagner, described as a retired police officer and photographer.
So what did this triangular object look like, or how was it seen?
Well, it's described mainly by its lights, 3 corner lights that apparently flash, and that flashing pattern creates the impression of a solid triangle shape between them.
Okay, 3 flashing lights forming a triangle. Anything else?
Yeah, something else apparently happened. A 4th light reportedly appeared, sort of in the bottom right corner relative to the triangle. It started flashing too, but then seemed to pull away from the main triangle formation, and even changed color as it did.
A 4th light detaching. Interesting. Does the source have a name for these triangles?
They do. They refer to these specific objects, the triangular ones, or the ones defined by 3 lights in a triangle, as TR3Bs.
TR3Bs. That term pops up a lot in these kinds of discussions, doesn't it? Often linked to speculation that secret military craft or something else entirely.
It does. And the source here notes that uncertainty, saying it's unknown if they are off-planet or one of ours. But yeah, TR3D is definitely a common label used in the UAP field for these alleged, often triangular, advanced craft.
And what about seeing them? You said it was blending with the stars.
Right. The source mentioned something interesting about their visibility. They suggest these things might actually be invisible to the naked eye, that it's only the flashing corner lights that give away their presence.
Which kind of echoes the South Carolina case, right? The idea of limited visibility or cloaking.
It does seem to fit that theme, yeah. Maybe not fully cloaked, but perhaps operating in a way that makes the main body hard or impossible to see directly. And the source tries to provide some broader context here, too.
How so?
They mention other space sightings they've apparently shared previously. They bring up footage from a 1996 space shuttle mission, an STS mission.
Oh, yeah. What about?
They claim that footage shows objects moving under what looks like intelligent control. They also talk about footage from the International Space Station, the ISS, supposedly showing various craft shapes, including saucers, triangles like this one, and even cigar shapes.
So they're suggesting a history of these kinds of observations in space seen on official NASA missions.
That's what they're putting forward. And they also explicitly claim that NASA denies these objects exist in their footage.
Right, okay. So if we step back and look at all these accounts the sources present, the bright speeding object over Australia, the cloaking saucer with its wobble in South Carolina, and this flashing triangle, the TR3B in space, are there common threads the source really wants us to notice?
Definitely. When you synthesize what these reports are describing, a few key characteristics really stand out according to the source material.
Like the extreme movement.
Absolutely. The reports consistently describe objects making sudden dramatic changes in speed and direction. The sources use terms like jetting off, hyperspeed, warp speed, all pointing to movement that seems to just shatter conventional physics,
And the flashes, the plasma discharge.
That's a big one, yeah. This recurring signature of sudden, intense brightness increases or distinct flashes. And the source consistently links it or presents it as happening right before these objects make those incredible maneuvers or just disappear.
Then there's the disappearing act itself.
Right. Another common theme is this idea of objects appearing to just dematerialize or vanish or cloak themselves. But Sometimes, like in the South Carolina case, leaving behind some kind of visible trace, like an outline or a distortion.
And we've seen a variety of shapes mentioned.
Glowing objects. The classic metallic discs or saucers, these triangles or TR3Bs, and even cigar shapes mentioned in the space context, so not just one form.
There's also the suggestion running through these accounts that maybe you can't always see these things easily.
Yeah, that's definitely implied. The source suggests some objects might be hard, maybe impossible to see with the naked eye. You might only catch them on camera, or maybe only perceive them through specific tells, like those flashing lights or the predator-style distortion.
And finally, the idea that these aren't just rocks or weather balloons.
No, the source material repeatedly implies these things are operating under intelligent control. The described maneuvers, especially the stuff reportedly seen in space footage, seem deliberate, purposeful.
And the source wraps up by putting out a call, right?
Yeah, basically encouraging anyone out there who thinks they've seen or filmed similar things, especially with these characteristics like plasma discharge or cloaking, to share their observations for corroboration, essentially.
So that's the picture painted by the source material for this deep dive. A collection of sightings, yeah, each unique in its details, but pointing toward potentially connected phenomena. We've got sudden, super fast departures, objects seemingly turning invisible, structured craft seen way up high.
It really does draw your attention to these, well, highly unusual reported characteristics, doesn't it? Those energetic plasma discharge flashes, the apparent ability to dematerialize or cloak, the suggestion of speeds and maneuvers that just break the mold of what we think is possible.
So listening to all this, what really stands out to you, how do these characteristics described in the sources, instant acceleration, cloaking, maybe only being visible via camera, how does that challenge our usual thinking about flight or technology or just what's up there?
It's a profound question. If objects truly can instantly change speed like that, or vanish or cloak themselves in the ways described in these sources, ways reported by people and cameras globally, well, what fundamental assumptions about physics, about reality itself, might we need to start rethinking? What could be possible right over our heads?